Hello traders at CMC Markets. This is Trevor Neil, analyst at RRG Research BV. It's an update and I'm recording this Friday the 12th of January in the morning just after Today we will be looking at stock indices and asset classes, and also we will look at oil today in response to that. Now we're going to start with a relative rotation graph, weekly sampling of asset classes, and I define the asset classes using the ETFs. Now we can see quite a dominance of arrows which are pointing southwesterly versus the MSCI world. So this is the world of assets versus an average of all the stock markets. So is it better to be in the stock market or bonds, and which particular stock markets should we be in? That's what we're trying to answer with this here. So what we see, first thing that strikes us is this: commodities continue to be weak, heading in a southwesterly direction. So this is weak in this lagging quadrant here, and getting weaker. So the momentum is declining, and the longest tail of all, it's doing that very fast indeed. So that trend and relative performance is strengthening this negative trend. Then if we look here, we've got bonds here. All bonds 7 to 10 year, the iBox corporate bonds here, all of them heading southwesterly. And yet, if we've got any opposite direction, it's in equities. The S&P is moving closely to the MSCI world, not surprising because it's such a big constituent of it. A tiny tail here, so a very static position, is saying that the QQQ, the Nasdaq, the tech stocks are still dominating the market, and they're furthest to the right by far. Europe, here we got it we had it in the improving quadrant, but it has this week turned down, and we'll see that in when we look at the individual indices. And then lastly, gold, which has really lost its shine, if you like, having had that attack on the highs, and then coming back, reeling back from that. So not only on an absolute basis, but also on a relative basis, it has fallen away. Now let's have a look at the individual major stock indices. On the left here, I've got it on the weekly basis and the daily basis. So let's start with the weekly sampling. And we've got a story here too, haven't we? First of all, I've added the Shanghai Composite in here. I'm watching this because it's been in a long downtrend like the Hang Seng. And so I'm looking for potentially some bottoming out taking place here. It's not happening yet. It's still the best thing to have on your short side if you're pairing off with something. We're in the lagging quadrant. Both of them are still heading southwesterly. You look at the graphs of them, they're still horror shows. We look at the European stocks. We've got the CAC, the stocks, and the DAX here. So most on the left-hand side here compared to the US stocks on the right-hand side here. So we've got the S&P, the Dow, and the Nasdaq, and the FANG, the tech stocks, only ones on the right-hand side of 100, so outperforming the MSCI world. But Europe is heading actually mostly worse. The DAX is the only one not. It's flirting with its highs, as you probably know. And the worst of all is the FTSE, which is looking still terrible on a relative basis just by staying where it is, really, and looking rather heavy. Other ones are generally moving higher, and in the case of the CAC, in the case of the DAX, flirting with its high. But US is the area to be in, and once again, flicking round into the leading quadrant with a longish tail and heading northeasterly is the FANG stocks. So we'll break those down as well. Now let's go and look at the daily message on this. And here we have a little bit of more of a squiggly picture, but what have we got here? Bunched up together. On the left hand side, CAC, stocks, DAX. We had a little bump up on the FTSE there, which took us into this area here with improving quadrant, but the move has been blunted. Improving Nikkei, Hang Seng had a intermediate term rally in the downtrend, and that seems to be coming to an end. We've got the Dow, which we like a lot as our best US index, and that is heading northeasterly. The Australian here coming down, weakening, having been very good recently. The S&P improving a bit. The Nasdaq and the FANG just a bit of an edge on there. So on the shorter term measurements in these strong markets, we've got a little bit of weakening going on, and that's something that we had picked up in our shorter term analysis. So let's look at some of these. We'll look at Europe. We won't look at the Hang Seng and the composite yet. They're still basically going down in strong downtrends. Yes, they zigzag lower, but that's very much still intact and looking like getting worse. We're going to look we'll look at the DAX because we've been favouring it, and also the US, the Dow, and then we'll look at this sort of movement in the FANG and see that longer term bullish message, but shorter term we're actually in the lagging quadrant. Moving now to the DAX. The DAX is consolidating after its break to new highs, burst up to 17,000, and then for the last couple of weeks it has been turning around, but importantly holding the break to new highs. So this is a healthy thing to do: break, consolidate, and then very often we push forward. We've got a very close point where we will break the pattern of higher lows, and that's at 16,460, and it's holding that at the moment. As long as it does, it's likely that this is going to push forward and break through the 17,000 level and have another substantial leg higher and really get underway the move that it has already started. We don't see it yet in the MACD. The gap is narrowing in here, but on the RSI we do. Sorry, this is the RSI here. On the RSI we've got these lower highs in place, and we've just broken the downtrend line in the RSI. So that's declining negative momentum in the market at the mid or lower point of the trading range. But at the moment, the short-term message is positive for it. Just a quick look at the luckless FTSE. Series of tops in place around 17,720 that extends up to 17,770 in fact, but that area, 1, 2, 3 tops in place here. We ran out of steam there, we saw that. The MACD has turned down. We've had a bump up today, but I wonder whether that will be sufficient to take out the high. We have got a rising lows pattern here, and this morning's reversal, it confirms it. It's a little bit better, but it is really churning sideways. We have to break through this level, and even when we do, there's a lot of resistance above. It's very unattractive index when you look at the DAX, just as deciding how it handles a break to new highs. We're a long way from that here. Now, talking about new highs, here's the S&P daily chart here, and back in January 2022, 2 years ago, we were at the high, and that was at 4,822. We're pretty close to it now. We're pushing towards it. We've had a strong move, quite a big pullback, 50% retracement, and then a rally after that. Now let's home in on that move. Usually cut that bit out when we zoom in, but here we are moving up, and I think we're moving up quite nicely here now. We've got higher lows pattern intact. The last higher low is at 4,680. We are then further supported, quite strongly supported, at 4,600. We're close to this high, of course not the all-time high, but we're quite close to this intermediate high and looking good. This candle itself is a positive candle. I think it's looking strong. The pause that we've had in many stock indices looks like it's potentially over. The MACD has come down, corrected, and it's now, the gap is narrowing in it. It's not turned bullish yet, but it's narrowed, and here the RSI is coming up. And what I would do here now for my trigger, to rather than wait for the break to new highs, I would draw a trend line across these tops here, and I see that we're already through it. So we've lost downside momentum. The momentum is increasing on the upside as we approach the resistance high. So I think this is a good one, and we're about to make the break. Now my favorite, the Dow. This is all-time highs here, so we're very close to making again new all-time highs. We've got a higher lows pattern here, quite an orderly advance, which I really like. So it's not ahead of itself in any way at all. The latest higher low is at 37,280. The trend is strongly up. The averages, the gap is widening in these averages, and it's well supported. We have had a pause since this year, but I think that it's getting ready to make its move up again. The MACD as yet has not even narrowed yet, so that's not giving a signal. But the more sensitive RSI, it is indicating that the pause is over. So we had the lower highs in here while we had high, and the same high here, but we're breaking the downtrend line of it. I think it's on its way. You can wait until after it makes a new high, but then I think you'll be chasing it because it'll be obvious to everybody that it's going up once it makes a new high. I think you can afford to get in a bit earlier, given that we've got a stop loss which is so relatively close here, 37,250, or more conservatively 37,060. So that's the one I like. Now the Nasdaq. Nasdaq is moving convulsively and very volatile around the November 21 previous all-time high. We broke it, came back very hard indeed. This was a 50% retracement. Zooming in here we see that 50% retracement and the zigzagging higher, having broken to new highs, pulled back hard through the old high and then moving up steadily again. It looks as though it's on its way back up again now, so the pause of this year looks like it's ended, and we've got the narrowing in of the MACD here. It's a lagging indicator, but it's showing that we've turned upwards. And then most importantly, the RSI, I'm going to just draw this in this line here now. So the lower pattern we had in the RSI during the pausing period is over. We've broken up through the downtrend line in the RSI, already underway. Now you can wait to get bullish until after we've made new highs, but it'll be obvious to our world that we're going up when we get new highs in the S&P. But to me, the momentum is increasing as we approach the high. It's very likely that we're going to break it on this attempt. And now to the RRG of the FANG Plus stocks, and there is an outstanding message on here, and that is Nvidia. Nvidia shooting long tail here, except for the weakness of Tesla. Tesla's got its own problems, and the factory closed down, etc., and other problems too. But Nvidia shooting away at 45 degrees upwards, increasing relative performance versus the whole group of the strong stocks, and northerly as well, with increasing momentum. We haven't got this in any others except for Microsoft, which we also favor. But I'm just going to jump to Nvidia, and here it is here, pushing ahead strongly and supported here. I'll extend that support line across here at it's 500 really. We've shot away from that, 540. We have got MACD, very strong indeed message from that, with gap widening, increasing upside momentum, and the RSI also very strong too. And we've got the higher lows pattern in it. It's in an acceleration phase, and it can go further in the short term. Before we go to Brent crude oil, a quick glance at gold. This is a weekly chart of gold, but gold is simply not doing its job as a risk hedge. It's stalling, it's disappointing. The MACD here is starting to narrow, it's starting to come down in fact. We've got strong resistance obviously at 2,000, the round number. We spiked up to 2,136, and it looks as though it's coming down towards this support below 2,000 again. The RSI, where the uptrend line here that we had from the higher lows in here has been broken, and so this move up seems to have stalled. Given the geopolitical background, this is astonishing. And now Brent crude oil. Given what is happening at the moment and the increase in geopolitical tension, you'd expect this to have burst out the range which it's been in all year. It's traded quite narrowly and sideways, but with very high volatility, elevated volatility during this period. And actually every single day in the last 2 weeks, it has been up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, consecutively without a break. If it was to follow that pattern today, it would be down today. But we've got shadow below, which you would expect, but still no breakout of the range. It's astonishing, in fact. The MACD is moving towards and close to crossing from indicating a bottom. That's true. And the RSI, I would say, has broken the downtrend here, so a bottom in place. So I do think that actually a intermediate term bottom is in place, but the short-term reaction to very positive news is not terrific, and that's often a very negative sign. But watch this one for a bottom, but the attack on the Hutus by the Americans and the British is not the catalyst for the start of this move. I thank you all very much indeed. I hope you have found this useful, and I wish you the very best from RRG Research. This is Trevor Neil wishing you the best, and may the trend be with you. Goodbye.